I just pray that people come to their senses soon. On that note, I want to talk about the next story, which is Mollie Tibbitts. You're going to want to stay tuned for this. It's pretty wild. So it's a young woman that was murdered in Brooklyn, Iowa. I don't like even talking about negative stories like this often, but there's a reason I want to talk about it, and it's not even because of the Trump build a wall sort of mentality. That's literally not why I'm even trying to talk about it, or else I would just ignore it. I'm not trying to politicize this, but these are things that most news are not going to say and you need to know. So Mollie Tibbitts was murdered going on a jog in Brooklyn, Iowa, not to be confused with Brooklyn, New York City, by an illegal alien or an illegal immigrant or an undocumented citizen from Mexico that's not a citizen of the United States. However, whatever label you want to give this person, I don't really care. I'm not big on labels, but killed by an illegal immigrant, illegal alien, undocumented, not citizen, whatever you want to say. So what's wild about this is multiple things. The first thing I want to say is, without politicizing this event, I want to say it's pretty wild that I went to her Twitter, and this is hopefully, maybe they'll take it down or whatever, but she had a tweet less than a year ago saying, "I hate white people." A retweet from somebody talking about Doug Jones versus Roy Moore, and it showed that white women and white men overwhelmingly supported Roy Moore, as opposed to the black, I believe, I don't know if Latino's in there, support of Doug Jones, who was going against Roy Moore, the Republican, Doug Jones, the Democrat. So she literally actually tweeted, "I hate white people." So she was a leftist, liberal, super dialed into the media, hated Trump, and apparently hated white people. So she hates white people according to her Twitter. She gets murdered by an illegal immigrant or an illegal alien, whatever you want to say. And her family starts tweeting and says, "I don't want people politicizing it. I don't want people talking about the wall. Don't talk about Trump. We don't want to politicize our family's death." And I totally get that, and I don't want to politicize it whatsoever. I'm just analyzing it right now. I hope that's okay. The news is doing it. I'm trying to do a more accurate job than the news. So I just find it really, really sad. First of all, I find it incredibly sad that she was murdered. Anytime someone's murdered, it's sad. But I also just find it incredibly sad that somebody could be so anti-Trump that they tweet they hate white people, they get murdered by an illegal alien, and then the family still is like, "Yo, don't talk about it. We don't want to push the Trump agenda at all. We're totally against that." So it's just a sad realization to myself that there's some people that there's no getting through the mental conditioning and I'll say it in that nice way because it's a tragedy. There's no way getting through the mental condition. You could literally have a family member murdered and who literally hated white people or hated Trump, and it still doesn't even change your opinion. It's because I was always under the ideology of what, maybe things will get to the point where people will just wake up. But it's if that doesn't wake you up, then probably nothing will. And I watched a lot of the news reporting on it. MSNBC, somebody on MSNBC, her name was, I don't know, I didn't write it down. Maybe I did. Mollie Greer. She said, she's just a girl from Iowa. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but she's Fox News is just talking about some girl from Iowa, but they should be talking about Michael Cohen's bank fraud and tax evasion and campaign violations. So I thought that was just really disgusting. It's oh, we got to stop talking about a girl who got murdered. How dare them talk about somebody who got killed? We need to talk about tax evasion of wealthy people who literally do that on a daily basis, and campaign violations so it's man, a lot of the media is unfortunately just so out of touch with the everyday person. You have politicians that don't like Trump that are "Oh, it's just a measly $1,000 that you're saving on your paycheck every year." It's just $1,000? I would love to save $1,000 every year, but they're so out of touch that it's just they don't even want to talk about somebody that got killed, rather than talk about this ongoing investigation that really hasn't led to much, that they've literally been talking about every day for 2 years. It's you can't take a break from talking about that to give respect to this young woman. You got to hate on somebody who is talking about it and try to redirect it to your babble that you've been just rambling about inaccurately for 2 years. That was a little unfortunate to me. And then Elizabeth Warren as well, progressive leader, basically. And like I said, I'm not trying to politicize this. I'm just telling you what I've seen. There's way more politicization going on the television. she was on TV and she was like, you know what? She was like, this is a tragedy, but what we need to talk about is families getting separated at the border, because I visited the border and like, we don't want to, I'll mention this girl, you know, that happened, but like, let's talk about the families at the border. So I thought that was just very cold, cruel, and obviously very political. Talk about not politicizing events. That was just horrible to see. And I just want to reiterate, for the people that don't listen, because, you know, people come up to me and be like, you know, they'll listen and be like, how do you feel this way about Trump when he's separating families at the border? And I'm like, listen, first of all, the reason that those acts and whatever bills, laws were into place, they were put into place by other politicians. Trump enforced them differently. Maybe he enforced them stronger. But the reason that they were put into place was not to be cruel, cold Americans who hate Mexicans. It was put into place to save children's lives, because a lot of these kids are getting trafficked and smuggled at the border. A high percentage of these kids coming across the border are either coming in solo dolo, coming in with a smuggler, or coming in with somebody who's not their parent. A high majority. I'm talking like, I don't want to be falsely quoted now, but you know, if I can remember correctly, upwards of 80+% are coming without a parent. So that's why those laws are into place. That's why they were separating families, was to stop kids from getting trafficked, smuggled, and raped. So it's not this big nefarious agenda of Trump. It's Trump trying to protect Americans like Mollie Tibbitts. It's Trump trying to protect Mexican kids, and Trump trying to not incentivize 50,000 people to come to the United States just to get arrested at the border. That's how many got arrested at the border 2 months ago. You think it's a small thing? It happens like once a month? No, 50,000 people, according to Washington Post, got arrested at the border last month. That's 50,000 people. They're getting arrested, getting their family separated, then getting sent back. So Trump, you're such a mean person by being like, don't do this. Don't come here. We can't. I mean, it's just how things work. Like, what are you going to let 10 million people into the country every month just because, I mean, it's like someone, law and order, basic, like, I don't know, that he's the president of the United States. That's like literally his job, whether you agree or disagree with it. I would think that it wouldn't be that controversial of a statement, but you have people like Elizabeth Warren saying, oh, yeah, that was bad what happened to her, but like, let's talk about the families at the border. They're being separated because a majority of the kids are not even coming with their parents, and some of these parents, believe it or not, are wanted for murder, are wanted for rape, have committed crimes in Mexico, like the big scoop. Oh my God, how could they pull over a guy driving his wife to the hospital? Because he was wanted for murder in Mexico. Just like if you're wanted for murder in the United States, they're going to pull you over too. Why would somebody from another country get special privilege over United States? If you're a Mexican American citizen or a white or a black American citizen and you're wanted for murder, you're going to get pulled over. So what are we going to not enforce the law for other? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So overall, without politicizing her death, I want to say, I'm not saying build a wall. I'm not saying to Trump. Republicans and conservatives are going to do that. But what I am going to say is report what a lot of the media is not going to report, that she tweeted, I hate white people. Her family said, don't politicize it. So it's like, man, even if something this bad happens, people still don't want to agree with Trump, which is fine. You don't have to. I'm not saying you have to, but just reporting that fact. And people on MSNBC and then Elizabeth Warren on CNN are politicizing it and saying, don't talk. Like someone called in, are saying, don't talk about it. Let's talk about Michael Cohen and let's talk about the families at the border, which I just want to remind you, literally the whole border fiasco situation, Trump's Hispanic support, according to reports, went up 10% during that election poll. So all these people act like they're so dialed into the Latino and black community. Meanwhile, Trump's black support is doubling and his Latino support is going up. When you're complaining about all this Latino stuff, there's clearly something that they're missing, and I'm telling you what it is. So if you really want to win elections and stuff, you should consider what I'm saying, because you're losing a lot of support. The final story